Hey, Tim Frisch with a Frisch Perspective here. I'd like to thank one of my listeners, Susan Borden, for bringing this breaking story to my attention. It says here, Supreme Court sides with church challenging California's COVID restrictions. This is really interesting what's happening. The Supreme Court, as I've talked about a little bit recently, has shifted its position, and now it is starting to trickle down to the states. It was a decision made in New York, but now it seems like it's going to have an impact in California concerning restrictions on churches. It says here, the Supreme Court on Thursday sided with a California church challenging Governor Gavin Newsom's restrictions on indoor worship services amid the spike in coronavirus infections, ordering a federal district court to revisit an earlier ruling against the religious institution. In a brief unsigned order with no noted dissents, the High Court tossed out an order from the federal trial court in the Central District of California, which had upheld Newsom's restrictions. The justices sent the dispute back to the lower court for further consideration in light of its decision last week in a similar challenge to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's restrictions on houses of worship. Another article here that I'm looking at says, Supreme Court orders new look at California worship service limits. The U.S. Supreme Court told a federal trial judge to take a fresh look at assertions that California is infringing religious rights by banning indoor worship services in most of the state amid a resurgence of COVID-19 cases. The High Court's one-paragraph order Thursday hints at the possible ripple effects of its decision last week, blocking strict capacity limits on New York churches and synagogues. I believe that the one-paragraph order here is right here, and it says, this is actually concerning Harvest Rock Church in California. The application for injunctive relief presented to Justice Kagan and by her referred to the court is treated as a petition for a writ of certiorari before judgment. I don't know that word, sorry. And the petition is granted. The September 2nd order of the United States District Court for the Central District of California is vacated, and the case is remanded to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit with instructions to remand the district court for further consideration in light of Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn versus Cuomo. So what all this sounds like is that the Supreme Court, in light of its recent shift in reasoning, is sending these cases back to the states to look at again. And so this shows that the Supreme Court's change in makeup and position is actually having an effect on the state's decisions and how the states function in relationship to church restrictions during the pandemic. So this has a really big bearing. This case, it sounds like, is specifically with Harvest Rock, but it's also going to obviously have an impact on churches that I've talked about, like Pastor MacArthur's Grace Community Church and Rob McCoy's Godspeak Calvary Chapel, among others. So for churches and religious freedom, this is really good news from that prerogative. From those who are concerned about safety, of course, this is going to continue to be the issue right now because, as these articles are pointing out, there is a rise in coronavirus cases. I keep saying, though, that we have to always look at what the numbers are really telling us, not only the number of cases, but actually how dangerous the virus is. And that's something we're going to continue to see more and more clearly as time goes on, I believe. Of course, there is bias in all of this, and we have to keep that in mind, too. But anyway, this is just the breaking report that I've heard. It'll be interesting to see what happens back in the court in California and how that ultimately affects churches like Grace Community Church, Godspeak Calvary Chapel, and Harvest Rock Church. So we'll see. I'd like to hear what you think, as always, in the comments below. Just make sure you keep your comments positive, helpful to discussion. But thank you so much for listening to this report brought to you from a Frisch Perspective.